Hey everybody, it's me Chase. Here we are on the live stream. Thank you very much for those of you who are going to be watching this, checking this out, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or X. Those are the three places I'm at right now. We're going to start doing these live streams every 2 weeks on Tuesday. And if you are on TikTok, I'm going to start doing a Friday night live stream, Friday night at 9 p.m. The first one will be this Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on TikTok. Black Friday, check it out. For those of you who are in the United States, happy Thanksgiving coming up to you and your family. I hope you're having a wonderful day filled with turkey and food and joy with your family. Happy Thanksgiving to all you folks out there. I'm seeing folks starting to trickle in. I see you, Neoclassical. Hello, Chase. Well, hello to you. Hello to all you folks who are watching. Of course, if you want to help out the campaign that I just finished up and we're still wrapping up, you can go to votechaseoliver.com/donate if you want to give. We are trying to finish out, closing out all the books, making sure everything gets paid for, contractually finished by the end of the year, so we can go ahead and wrap this thing up with a bow and get 2025 started off with a bang. So you can go there and donate if you want to. I encourage you to do it. Check it out, votechaseoliver.com/donate. But I'm not running for president anymore. I'm doing live streams. That's what I'm doing now. And so two parts to this thing. We're going to do a little bit and a little later. We're going to talk about some news that maybe people are not hearing about or have heard about, and it's getting drowned out with all the national noise and attention that comes from the national political scene. And yeah, so thank you guys. You got to get me a new shirt, says Brady Kelly. Listen, I am born in Nashville, Tennessee. My family is from Nashville originally, but we bleed orange. My family, my mom went to the University of Tennessee. Unfortunately, you're going to have to disagree with me there, but we're having a great year at the University of Tennessee. The whole SEC is crazy this year, actually. A lot of great teams. It's really up in the air as who's going to be running for the SEC championship because, it seems everybody's got two losses up at the top of the SEC right now. Anyway, so we are going to be doing this every 2 weeks, in addition to, again, TikTok Live every Friday night. So we're going to continue doing these things so I can reach out to folks. We can talk about some things. And like I said, a little later on, we're going to talk about some maybe non-national politics stories, as you know, as well as kind of the news of the day that we're hearing about. But this first part, I just want to kind of go over my week. So I went on an X Space hosted by Dave Smith the other day. The host or the title of the space was "Did I Sell Out My Principles to Support Donald Trump?" I was on there for about the first half hour. I did dip out after that. I did have some prior things that I needed to get done, including some show notes for this thing. But I think, I got my point across that I don't, I can't answer that question for Dave, but I do feel like there's a lot of things that are very unlibertarian about Donald Trump, and we're seeing this with some of his picks for his cabinet. I spoiler alert, I'm not going to be completely negative on all of his cabinet picks. There's actually a couple of people, one person, and there's some things that I'm like iffy on, but overall, for the most part, they're very unlibertarian. There's certainly not a libertarian in that cabinet. Speaking of that, what is my view on Kennedy being a libertarian in the cabinet? He just isn't. I know he's a lifetime party member because, a guy like Kennedy can drop $3,000 like it's, or $1,500 like it's fallen out of his couch. And so he became a lifetime member after the convention and everything. I think this probably has to do with the fact that he entered that joint fundraising committee, and to make it seem more legit, he became a party member, even though he wasn't running as a libertarian candidate. But that's neither here nor there. The point is no, I don't think he's a libertarian. I don't think he is the libertarian in the cabinet, because he's not a libertarian. I would like to see a libertarian in the cabinet. Like I said, on Dave's stream, like a Corey DeAngelis at the Department of Education, who would absolutely be committed to ending the Department of Education and granting that money right back to the states. Like I think that he would actually do that. And so there are things that, like, bug me about that stream. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I did pop in for a little bit after I had jumped out, just to kind of listen in. And what I heard is more people kind of doing a postmortem of my campaign than really talking about what's going on with Trump. But I really felt like I had gotten some feedback from some people who did watch the entire or listen rather to the entire stream. And I got some things that like maybe I need to like clarify here. Some things that maybe people don't understand. Let's go ahead and do it. So like the things that we hear the most as criticisms of me as a candidate, as a libertarian or whatever, that I supported the lockdowns or mandates. I never did. You know, you can look for me to ever say that go lockdowns or mandates. That's never been something that I've ever supported. I've always supported you making your own decisions. But it appears that just merely wearing a mask in the city of Atlanta, where you really couldn't go anywhere at the time without wearing one, was enough to make people think that I supported lockdowns and mandates. Never mind the fact that Donald Trump, who is now the president-elect, not only wore a mask, but also was the government that initiated the initial excuses for lockdowns and mandates. And so, you know, that is a thing that really, for me, you know, just doesn't jive with the fact that my record shows to be very different. In fact, far less in support of lockdowns than, say, a president who gave Anthony Fauci a commendation on the way out the door. That wasn't me that did that. But I just want to go ahead and get out there. Like, I support medical freedom. You do you, whatever it is, with your body, with your medical choices, whatever it is. I want you to make that decision. If you own property, I want you to make the decision about your property, about your business. I don't want government to get involved in any of that. Part of the reason I'm a libertarian is because I recognize that government is just a very inefficient middleman that completely ruins the efficiency of the marketplace and really makes bad decisions. And in fact, you don't need government to make good decisions. Good ideas don't require force, which is exactly what government is. So like that one, I don't know where people get this, but like this was a narrative that was thrown out there that I hate Ron Paul. One screenshot does not tell a complete story, I would say. And if you look at like the total sum statements or anything I've ever said publicly about Ron Paul, I would think that you would actually side on the more complimentary side of things. And as for that one screenshot, I went on several podcasts, by the way, including Luke Radowski, who, you know, said that basically, you know, that I explained through this process exactly what that screenshot was about. And for me, that is ridiculous to say that I hate somebody or that I'm bashing somebody. Bashing somebody would be to like repeatedly attack or to like constantly make it like an obsessive thing. No, I had a negative statement to say about Ron Paul, and I've had many positive statements about Ron Paul. I don't think that anybody is infallible, and I don't think political worship is a thing that we should be really all about as libertarians, including myself. Please do not hold me as some sort of infallible standard out there. I'm a regular human being, just like anybody else, just like anybody else on this earth, Ron Paul included. But I did want to go to the next thing is that I should go away because I got 0.4% of the vote. That's a ridiculous thing. That is a ridiculous thing to think because Ron Paul got 0.47% of the vote when he ran for president in 1988. Were we telling him he should just go away and he's terrible and awful because of his vote total? No, I don't think the vote total really tells the whole story. And in fact, I would argue that if many of my critics do want to use vote total as a metric, do they feel like Gary Johnson is like multiple times better than Ron Paul because he got like that many more votes? I don't think that's really a way to measure these things. For me, you know, I think each election is a different environment. You know, each election has different conditions. And this one was a very tough election for alternative party voices. Even though the Green Party outperformed the Libertarians in this, you know, in this election, right? They did so with like 4 times, 5 times the funding. But they also massively underperformed what Jill Stein did in 2016, the last time she was on a ticket. And, you know, so there's like a different story to tell there too. Even though they did improve upon Howie Hawkins in 2020. So each election is very different. And I do think in this one, the X factor was very much Robert Kennedy running as an independent throughout most of the campaign and taking a lot of that alternative party oxygen that would have had eyeballs on the Libertarian Party, on the Green Party, on the Constitution Party, And, I did my best to try to travel across the country and to get the name out there as much as possible. And so that is another misconception I think was said a lot of the time during this spaces. I haven't heard the whole thing, but this is what I've heard from feedback, is that I only did pride parades, that I only campaigned at pride parades. For me, that's just not true. Now, in June, did I do a lot of pride events right after I got the nomination? Yes, because it's Pride Month. I'm the first LGBTQ person to ever be on a national ballot across the country. And this is a way to market libertarianism. It's not about me, it's about marketing our philosophy outward. And if it is more comfortable to LGBTQ people to hear the libertarian message from someone who's part of their community as an entryway into libertarianism, into the ideas of liberty, into the ideas of non-aggression and property rights and self-ownership and limiting government to its minimal size, that's a good thing. And we should be actually doing that outward outreach, whether it's me or anybody else. In fact, Pride is routinely one of the most successful outreach events that libertarian affiliates across the country engage in. I became a libertarian because the Libertarian Party of Georgia was doing an event, had a booth at the Atlanta Pride Festival. So it's not a bad thing that if you have a gay candidate to put them at gay events. Like, that's not a horrible thing. But that's not the only thing I did do. And in fact, most of the time when I would go to a Pride event, I was also doing other events in that area or in that region to supplement that campaign swing. That was just one part of a campaign swing. And so that to me, I think is, a ridiculous notion. If you look at the number of events we did, the number of media hits we did, comparing, like LGBTQ media to traditional media, LGBTQ events to traditional events, the same person who helped me plan on doing an event at the Abbey in West Hollywood towards the end of the campaign, in the middle of the campaign, had me out at a shooting range in California, which was the place where I actually shot the most guns, ironically enough, weirdly enough there. So that idea just doesn't fly if you really look at the data. And of course, we'll have like a full debrief of the campaign coming out eventually once that's all compiled. We're still putting all that together. But that's just not true that I only did Pride events. And in fact, I severely that is just saying that you're only recognizing me as my identity and not the work that I did. And by the way, Angela was upset that people were not recognizing the work that she had put into this. I recognize she probably put in some hard work into what she was doing over the last year. I also did the same and feel that leadership in the party, particularly from the chair, doesn't give that proper recognition either. So let's just say it is a two-way street. And the last one, or no, we have two more, that I'm a secret Democrat. I'm a secret Democrat plant because I was an Obama voter in 2008. And people call me a lifelong Democrat. Like, I have been a libertarian way longer than I've been a Democrat at this point. And so for me, that's just funny that, people can forgive where other people come from, but not the fact that I came from the Democratic Party. And then I left because Obama was not anti-war, that he lied to the entire anti-war movement and pushed me out of the party. Just like, there are other prominent members of the Libertarian Party that came here from somewhere else. I mean, I think a prominent part of Spike Cohen's biography is that at one point he was a neocon that woke up to the fact that the wars were terrible, and he left that wing, the Republican Party, that kind of whole neocon wing, and became like a dynamic voice for liberty, right? Same thing happened to me. It just happened from the Democratic side of the aisle. And so, no, I'm not some secret Democrat. I don't like operating within the two-party system. I think the two-party system is completely corrupted. I think he is, ultimately the two-party system is just toxic. It is not something that is going to have productivity. I argued that you don't become a libertarian. If you're a libertarian, you go to the Republican Party, you don't make it more Republican, or more libertarian rather, you become more Republican. If you're a Green Party or a libertarian that goes in the Democratic Party, you don't make them more green or more libertarian, you become more Democratic. And that's why I just refuse to work within that broken system. They are two very corrupt parties that are in a kind of a kayfabe conflict with one another. And really, one of the things they do very well is preventing anybody else from entering into the arena. And that's what we have to organize around. We have to break down the two-party system. And that has to happen across the party spectrum. But the Libertarian Party needs to organize itself to run candidates to win elections, and not just be a feeder league for the Republicans or the Democrats, or try to be like a spoiler factory for one or the other. I think the idea that we only run candidates that would seek to harm the ability to remove MAGA candidates is a ridiculous strategy. And I think it's just one that basically says that we've given up on our principles for some table scraps. And I just don't find that to be, to me, to be very attractive. But I did have questions I did not get to answer in my brief time on that space, and I hope I get to answer them in the future. Now, I did ask, do I feel like Trump has broken his promise? And I was told that that's a blue-pilled question for some reason. I think that's an honest question at this point, based on where we're at with the cabinet picks. It's an honest question to ask, do we feel like Trump has broken a promise? But another question that I had for Dave was, if he had been the LP nominee, like if he had gone through, won the nomination, would he have dropped out like Robert Kennedy did before the election? I think it's important for people to know that, and kind of know what someone's mindset would be around that. That would have been the question I would have liked to ask. And then a question I would have liked to ask Angela is, when did she first start being contacted by the Trump administration or the Trump campaign? Did she contact them, or did they contact her first, and when? Because I want to know kind of when this whole strategy was kind of created. I just kind of want to know the timeline of these events, because it seems to me like there's some ambiguity. Some people, I've heard multiple stories from multiple people, and I would like to know directly from the Libertarian Party chair as to when the approach first happened and who approached whom and how that whole thing went about. We'll know the story eventually, I'm sure. But just that's kind of these kind of like myths that I think have been perpetrated about me. I don't know. It seemed very coordinated by certain folks to make it seem as if I am somehow unlibertarian. But for me, I'm always going to look to solutions that are rooted outside of government, leaning towards non-aggression, towards the idea that we don't need central planning to fix things for us. We need to decentralize ourselves away from that. And ultimately, we have to address the debt and the deficit, which is my biggest skepticism about Donald Trump. Now, I know everyone is excited about Doge, and I get excited about government efficiency too. But the question is do we actually, are we actually going to see this efficiency happening? Like, are we going to see action? Or are we going to see basically a blue ribbon commission that gives its report out in 2 years and is done, and then nothing happens because Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate get in the way? It's not a real department. It doesn't have any real enforcement capability. It's not something that has real teeth. And so while I'm excited to see what can be addressed, what really worries me about this is that Donald Trump has already said Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security are off the table of being touched, which is what he ran on. And so if he continues to keep that promise, that's, those are the highest, that's some of the highest drivers of our spending, followed by the Pentagon, which Donald Trump has indicated he wants to build back up, so spend more on. And so, like, even if you cut a bunch of stuff elsewhere, if you just go with the plan that Trump has, government's going to grow, debt and deficit's going to grow, particularly if they cut taxes again without cutting spending, because that's going to create an even larger deficit and even further the inflation of the dollar. And that is bad for the average American working family, which, I'm the average working person. I'm not somebody who is a millionaire. I feel that pinch of inflation, and I know the average American's going to. And if this is the path, combined with tariffs, that the Trump White House is going to take, I fear that there's going to be major price increases, a bump up in inflation. And in 2 years, just Democrats are going to wipe out the Republicans in the midterms, because they're not going to have delivered on the thing that is most important to voters, which when they were polled was inflation and cost of living. So Yeah, so let's see. Doge is a joke. It's not a real department, says Gavin. I hope that there's more to it than just a podcast and some Dogecast and some recommendations that get ignored. Reagan's efforts produced some results, but nothing long lasting. Yes, remember when? And I do want to say this. Speaking of Ronald Reagan and efficiency and saying they're going to cut government. I'm not angry if somebody didn't vote for me. Okay. I don't hold grudges. I'm sure there are people I know that voted for Trump. I'm sure there are people I know that voted for Harris. I don't hold grudges. But what I do hope is if Donald Trump continues to grow government and we see debts and deficits increasing, I do hope those libertarians who maybe felt like this was a gamble worth taking recognize that it wasn't. And that working within the Republican Party is just it's never going to win with regards to shrinking government. And I'm not angry or holding a grudge or here to say I told you so. I'm here to get to work because I think that's what we need to do in the Libertarian Party is actually organize ourselves, get ourselves out of the red and into the black in terms of funding, and really see ourselves growing, putting some KPIs out there that we can meet or exceed or be held accountable for. And that's what I want to see from our leadership. That's what I think we need to see in the coming months, as opposed to what we've seen in terms of performance of our budget and our membership over the last couple of years. And I want to work for that. So that being said, I think there were people who in 1988, when George H.W. Bush said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." I'm sure there are some libertarians who voted for him instead of voting for Ron Paul in 1988. Certainly, we had about the same percentage in the vote total, right? So there are plenty of people who voted for Donald Trump who didn't vote for me, who felt like the Doge thing was worth gambling on. Similarly, I'm sure there were people in 2000 who thought when George Bush said he was going to have a kinder, gentler foreign policy and be a compassionate conservative and cut government, they voted for him over Harry Brown. And then we saw what happened on 9/11 and afterwards, and that just didn't come to pass, right? So I don't hold grudges for people. But what I want to do is I want to leave the door open for people to come back into the Libertarian Party. And I say this to people who felt like it was a good gamble to vote for Trump. I want you to come back and help build this party. And I say the same for people who maybe have left the party for the last couple of years out of frustration with leadership. I think it's time for those folks to come back to the party and help identify and elect strong leadership in states across the country. That's what I want to see. I want to see us finding professionals, and it's not so much about where they fall on a caucus line for me, or their ideological line, whether they're an anarchist or a minarchist or some other part of the libertarian tent. I really want to see people who have success at growing the Libertarian Party, who have success outside of politics of growing a business or a nonprofit, and can show a vision for how we're going to grow ourselves. Because right now we are in a very dire straits with terms of fundraising and membership, and it's time for a renaissance of the Libertarian Party. And to do that, we have to get above personality. We have to stop dividing ourselves against each other and find people who are committed to building the party and putting leadership in place who are focused on building this party in our message, in our platform, in our principles. And so that's what I'm committing myself to do over the next few years. That being said, I just got a couple news items that I did want to pop up here. Somebody, let me find, hope you run again, Chase, run again in 2028. Jordan, I don't know if it's 2028, but I will run again one day if the party is in a position to really support campaigns across the country in a way they were not able to in 2024. I want them to be able to do that. So that's my commitment, is to make the party better so that if I do ever want to run again, we're in a position to really, really run well and make some gains in a way that just the conditions on the ground and the headwinds we faced, we were not able to. I'm trying to find, I can't find the, I can't find the comment I was looking for, but I did want to talk about a little bit some appointments that Trump has made. His appointment to the NIH is somebody who is very skeptical of the COVID state. Um, I'm glad to see that. We'll see exactly what they can do there at NIH. Jim O'Neill for HHS Deputy Secretary, I'm kind of iffy on because he is from the Peter Thiel wing of the world. And that is a guy that I find to be really sketchy. And I really worry about like a lot of information technology and AI really being the tyranny of the future. And I think he's leading the way on a lot of those things. Thiel, I mean. But Jim O'Neill does talk about ending the efficacy need for FDA approval and just going merely to safety, which is a long-held libertarian idea that, in fact, ultimately, I would like to see both safety and efficacy done through the private marketplace. But removing efficacy from the government and putting that in the private hands, I think is a good thing all along. And so long as we're proving safety, right, the consumer can be happy for what they're going to do. So I like some of his ideas. We'll see how far they go again. Again, that I'm willing to give credit where credit's due. That's a good idea, even if I'm not really thrilled on like the wing of politics he comes from. As far as NIH, I think they probably got a decent guy in there who's been very skeptical of the COVID state. It's going to be funny seeing Trump have a guy on his team who is completely skeptical of everything Trump did in 2020. But we'll see. I'm hopefully optimistic there. Now, that libertarian guy says run for chair in 26. Nope, I will not be running for chair in 26. We're going to be identifying people to run for chair in states and for national across the country who are ready to run for chair. I have spent 3 years running for office. I am taking a break. I am flattered that you would think so, but we need to take a break in terms of Chase Oliver being a candidate, inner or outer party. I'm taking a break from that so I can focus on helping to build our party up. I think that's the best thing we can do. So let's see. Last bit of news. So this is a news item I really wanted to bring up because it's close to home here in Georgia. Though it's not here in Atlanta, it's in rural Fannin County, Georgia. And that is the story of Brittany Patterson. Brittany Patterson is a mother, and she was recently arrested for what she was told was reckless endangerment, which is not actually a thing, but it was later arrested and charged with reckless conduct. What was she doing that was so reckless? Well, she was a mom who left her kid with grandpa, and that young man decided to walk about a mile to the nearest gas station in a town of 200 with no traffic lights, and ended up being seen on the walk back in a 35-mile-per-hour road. And a police officer brought this kid back and then later arrested the mother for reckless endangerment. Now, why do I think this is crazy? First off, this charge really goes to the idea that there's a year in jail or a $1,000 fine for this, right? A $1,000 fine for your kid walking to the grocery store at 10 years old. Now, I grew up in Snellville, Georgia, and let me just say, by the time I was 10 years old, I was biking all over Snellville, certainly more than a mile down the road, and it was certainly a more populated area than a no traffic light 200-person town. And so for me, it's so ridiculous to see that we have this nanny state that is arresting this mother because her kid took a walk to the store. Why? Maybe for some candy, or I don't know. But I mean, when did our government get so intrusive into our lives that someone just wants to, to not even allow our kids to walk a mile away without this fear? Again, I was on my bike riding all over the place. I'd ride to the park to go hang out and, play in the playground, or I'd bike to the store to get myself soda or some candy, or I'd bike to a friend's house to go hang out and watch a movie, and this is plenty of times. And so for me, like, this is just indicative of the growth of government, and this is in rural Georgia. Like, you would expect something like this, like in a big city where there's like a really like a just a very intrusive police state, but like you wouldn't expect this in like a small town, rural Georgia. And so for me, I just wanted to shout this story out and just shout out my support for Brittany and think it's ridiculous. And I hope these charges get completely dismissed. She shouldn't have to go through the grief of having to fight this thing to begin with. But I just want to say, libertarians, like, these are the kinds of things that happen in our communities that we need to focus ourselves around. When like government overextends itself and abuses the citizenry like this, I think we need to address it, and we need to back these folks up and signal our support. And so, as a libertarian, I'm saying that it is BS what's happened in Fannin County, Georgia. Brittany Patterson should not have to be fighting for her innocence because her kid took a walk down the street. This is ridiculous. And let's just say, where do we go with that? Oh, Maggie. I used to buy cartons of cigarettes for my grandma from the corner store when I was like 12. Well, I don't think you can buy cigarettes for your grandma anymore, just age requirements, whatnot. But it just speaks to the point of the world's a lot different than it used to be. Yeah, so for me, it's just indicative of like this kind of police state that we live in. Like, it literally is a police state when you have people arresting a mom when nothing happened to anybody. So yeah, I just wanted to shout her out and say, we'd love to hear more about that story. And in fact, I've reached out. Hopefully we can get her on as a guest in a future live stream. By the way, this is a solo live stream. Normally I would have a guest or two on. This one was kind of spur on the fly. It's a holiday week, but I'm going to start bringing more people in each and every time, every other week. And so we will have a guest, hopefully, or a co-host of some kind in 2 weeks from now. But yeah, this week we just decided to do it just me because it is that holiday week and folks are getting ready to travel for Thanksgiving and whatnot. Hey, Chase, cool to see you. Hopefully you're getting more sleep. Thank you, Tommy. I am getting more sleep. Actually, just more regular sleep because I'm not having to be constantly traveling, though I am still going to be out and about. I got back from the Liberty International World Conference in Texas a couple of weeks ago. It was a great event to do out there. And I will continue to be out and about, as it were, as future projects announce themselves. But right now, I'm focused on finishing out this campaign, which is something that I do need to do. And if you want to help us do that, you can go to votechaseoliver.com/donate. Help us close out those final bills. It's something every campaign has to do after they're done, is make sure they close up shop ethically and responsibly. Help us do that by being a donor today. Go to votechaseoliver.com/donate and help us close out. But I will be announcing future projects coming up in the coming weeks that will be very exciting and will help us build a stronger, more effective Libertarian Party. Normally, these live streams will go about an hour in the future, but because it's just me and I'm just out here talking to you in the void, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Loving the beard, Chase, says the scientific libertarian. Yes, I'm growing facial hair again. It's something that I get a chance to do now that I'm not running for office. This is the elder statesman, retired from running for president beard. I'm looking forward to that. So, but for those of you who have stayed to watch today, check us out in 2 weeks here on these platforms, on X, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And on Friday, I will be doing a live stream, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on TikTok. Come out and check us out there. Come out and follow me at Chase for Liberty on that platform and on all platforms. And for those of you who are watching, for those of you who watch this in the future, I'm going to wish you the same thing that I wish each and every person, but peace, love, and liberty to all of you. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great night. And I'll hopefully see you soon.